Most people believe that becoming a millionaire requires one of three things: an extraordinary income, a lucky investment that multiplied at exactly the right time, or an inheritance that arrived and changed the math entirely. Most people are wrong. The $1 million retirement account, the number that represents genuine financial independence for the average American household, is not primarily a product of income. It is a product of three variables that are available to almost anyone with a steady paycheck, a functioning bank account, and the willingness to set up a system once and leave it alone for a very long time. Those three variables are contribution amount, investment return, and time. That is the complete list. There is no fourth variable. There is no secret ingredient. There is no strategy available to high-income earners that changes the fundamental math in ways unavailable to someone earning $55,000 a year. Here is the number that makes this concrete. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median American worker earns approximately $59,384 annually as of 2025. Someone earning that salary who invests 15% of their gross income, $8,907 per year, approximately $742 monthly, in a low-cost S&P 500 index fund starting at age 25 and retiring at 65 will accumulate approximately $4.7 million at the historical average return of 10% annually. Not $1 million, not $2 million, $4.7 million on a median American salary over 40 years of consistent, boring, completely unsexy automated investing in a single index fund. The problem is not that the math is unavailable. The math is in every personal finance book ever written, in every introductory finance course ever taught, on every compound interest calculator available for free on the internet. The problem is the gap between knowing the math and executing the specific steps that make the math apply to your actual life, and the specific traps that stand between a person's paycheck and the account where compounding does its work. This video closes that gap completely. By the end, you will have the specific contribution amounts, the specific accounts in the specific order to use them, the specific funds to buy inside those accounts, the specific automations that make the strategy execute without requiring monthly decisions, and the specific behavioral commitments that prevent the most common ways people interrupt a strategy that would have worked perfectly if they had simply left it alone. The $1 million retirement account on an average salary is not a fantasy. It is arithmetic. Here is how the arithmetic works in practice.
Before we jump in, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps more people discover these videos, and it only takes a second. Now, let's get into it.
Step 1. Understand what you are actually building and why the math works. Before touching an account or moving a dollar, the most important investment you can make is 20 minutes understanding the mechanism that does all the work. Not because the mechanism is complex, it isn't, because understanding it specifically and concretely is the only thing that produces the behavioral commitment required to leave the strategy alone long enough for it to work. The mechanism is compound interest, and the specific feature of compound interest that makes the $1 million retirement account achievable on an average salary is the exponential growth curve, the mathematical reality that investment returns are calculated not just on your original contributions, but on every dollar of return those contributions have already generated. Here is what this looks like with real numbers. You invest $10,000 in a low-cost S&P 500 index fund at age 25 and never add another dollar. At 10% annual returns, the historical average of the S&P 500 over the past century, that $10,000 becomes $25,937 after 10 years. After 20 years, $67,275. After 30 years, $174,494. After 40 years, $452,593. You added nothing. You made no decisions. The $10,000 sat in a single fund, dividends were reinvested automatically, and the math produced $452,593 from a $10,000 starting point. The work was done entirely by time and the compounding mechanism. The rule of 72 makes this intuitive. Divide 72 by your annual return rate, and you get the approximate number of years for your money to double. At 10% returns, money doubles every 7.2 years. So $10,000 becomes $20,000 in 7.2 years, $40,000 in 14.4 years, $80,000 in 21.6 years, $160,000 in 28.8 years, $320,000 in 36 years, and $640,000 in 43.2 years. The critical insight embedded in this doubling sequence is that each doubling adds more in absolute dollars than all the previous doublings combined. The first doubling adds $10,000, the second adds $20,000, the third adds $40,000, the fifth adds $160,000, the sixth adds $320,000. The growth is not linear, it is exponential, which means the strategy feels underwhelming for years before it becomes extraordinary. This is the behavioral trap that ends more retirement accounts than any market crash, any financial mistake, or any financial emergency. The early years of compound growth feel slow and disappointing. You contribute faithfully, the balance crawls upward, and the gap between what you've contributed and what you imagined seems stubbornly persistent. The people who quit during this phase, who redirect contributions to something else, who move the money into a savings account where they can see it more clearly, who pause the automation during a period of financial tightness and never restart it, are the people who lose the last doublings, the ones worth $320,000, the ones worth $640,000. Understanding that the flat early years and the explosive late years are the same mechanism operating at different stages is the foundational knowledge that makes everything else possible. Step 2. Use the right accounts in the right order. The investment return the market provides is the gross return. The net return that actually compounds in your account depends critically on the tax structure of the account holding your investments. Choosing the wrong account type or investing in a taxable brokerage account when tax-advantaged alternatives are available and unfilled is one of the most expensive and most avoidable mistakes in personal financial planning. The correct account order for most people building toward a $1 million retirement account follows a specific sequence that maximizes tax efficiency at every step. First priority, contribute to your employer's 401k up to the full employer match. This is the only genuinely risk-free guaranteed return available in personal finance. If your employer matches 50% of contributions up to 6% of salary, the first 6% of your income contributed to the 401k generates a guaranteed 50% return before a single dollar of market return is added. On a $59,000 salary, the full match represents approximately $1,770 in free annual compensation. Leaving any portion of this uncaptured is not conservative financial behavior. It is declining a guaranteed 50% return on money that was already available to you. Second priority, maximize a Roth IRA. The 2025 contribution limit is $7,000 annually for individuals under 50, $8,000 for individuals 50 and older through the catch-up provision. The Roth IRA is the most powerful wealth-building account available to the average earner for a specific reason. Every dollar inside it grows completely tax-free and is withdrawn completely tax-free in retirement. The taxes are paid once on the contribution, at your current tax rate, which for most average earners is lower than the rate that would apply to large retirement withdrawals. Every dollar of growth, every dividend, every compounding return generated inside the Roth IRA for the next 40 years belongs entirely to you. The practical impact of this tax structure is significant. $7,000 contributed annually to a Roth IRA starting at age 25, invested in a low-cost S&P 500 index fund at 10% annual returns, produces approximately $3.05 million by age 65. Every dollar of that $3.05 million is tax-free at withdrawal. In a taxable account, the same investment would produce a pre-tax number in the same range, but require approximately 15 to 20% in long-term capital gains taxes on the gains, a reduction of $400,000 to $600,000 in after-tax wealth from the same investment strategy in the wrong account. Third priority, return to the 401k and contribute beyond the match up to the annual maximum. The 2025 401k contribution limit is $23,500 for individuals under 50, $31,000 for those 50 and older through the catch-up provision. Traditional 401k contributions reduce taxable income in the year of contribution. A $10,000 401k contribution reduces your tax bill by $2,200 if you're in the 22% marginal bracket. That $2,200 in tax savings is additional capital available for compounding rather than disappearing into a tax payment. Fourth priority, if all tax-advantaged options are maximized and additional investment capacity remains, a position most average earners won't face immediately but should plan for as income grows, a taxable brokerage account using low-turnover index funds with tax loss harvesting captures market returns with minimized but not eliminated tax drag. The account sequence matters enormously in dollar terms over a 40-year investment horizon. The same investment strategy executed in the right account order versus the wrong account order produces a difference of hundreds of thousands of dollars in after-tax retirement wealth from identical gross contributions and identical market returns.
Step 3. Buy the right investments inside those accounts. The account is the tax wrapper. The investment inside the account is the engine that actually generates the return. And for the overwhelming majority of investors, including most professional investors, as the data consistently demonstrates, the optimal engine is the simplest one available. A low-cost total market index fund, or S&P 500 index fund, is a basket that holds tiny pieces of every significant publicly traded company in America simultaneously. When you buy the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF, ticker VTI, you own fractional shares of more than 3,600 U.S. companies in one transaction. When Apple increases in value, your fund increases. When a small biotech company collapses to zero, your fund barely registers it because that company represented less than 0.1% of the total basket. You own the entire market. You cannot underperform the market because you are the market. The case for this approach is not theoretical. It is documented with extraordinary consistency by the most rigorous research available. The S&P Dow Jones Indices SPIVA report, the most comprehensive ongoing analysis of active fund performance versus index benchmarks,
found that over the 20-year period ending in 2024, approximately 93% of actively managed large-cap funds underperformed the S&P 500 index. Not in a bad year, not in a challenging market environment. Over 2 full decades of professional management by people with Ivy League finance degrees, Bloomberg terminals, research teams, and hundreds of millions of dollars in resources. They lost to the index, consistently, predictably, expensively. The reason active management underperforms is not primarily that fund managers make bad decisions. It is that they charge fees that the index does not charge, and those fees compound against the investor over decades in ways that dwarf the performance differences between individual investment decisions. The average actively managed mutual fund charges an expense ratio of 0.5% to 1% annually. The Vanguard S&P 500 ETF, ticker VOO, charges 0.03%. Fidelity's Zero Total Market Index Fund, ticker FZROX, charges literally 0.00%. The fee difference between a typical actively managed mutual fund and a zero expense ratio index fund on a $500,000 portfolio is $2,500 to $5,000 annually. Over 20 years, the compounding effect of that fee differential represents $80,000 to $180,000 in additional wealth produced by the lower-cost fund from identical pre-fee market exposure. For a simple, complete portfolio inside the right tax-advantaged accounts, the investment decision reduces to choosing between 3 options. Option 1, a single total market index fund, like VTI, VOO, or FZROX. Maximum simplicity, own everything, pay almost nothing in fees, leave it alone for 40 years. Option 2 is a target date retirement fund. These funds, available at Vanguard, Fidelity, and Schwab, hold a diversified mix of U.S. stocks, international stocks, and bonds, and automatically shift toward a more conservative allocation as the target retirement date approaches. You buy one fund, named for your approximate retirement year, and it manages its own rebalancing without any action required from you. Vanguard's Target Retirement 2055 fund charges 0.08% annually. The entire portfolio strategy is contained in a single ticker. Option 3 is the 3-fund portfolio, popularized by the Bogleheads investing community. A U.S. total market index fund, an international stock index fund, and a U.S. bond index fund, held in proportions reflecting your age and risk tolerance. Typically something like 70% U.S. stocks, 20% international stocks, and 10% bonds for someone in their 30s, shifting toward more bonds as retirement approaches. Rebalanced once a year by directing new contributions toward whichever fund has fallen furthest from its target allocation. All 3 options will produce a 7-figure retirement account on an average salary over 40 years of consistent contribution, provided the fees are low, the account type is correct, and the investment is left alone during every market downturn between now and retirement.
Step 4. Calculate your specific number and automate it. Abstract commitment to saving for retirement produces abstract results. The specific automation that executes a specific dollar amount on a specific date produces the $1 million retirement account. Here is how to calculate your specific monthly contribution target. Start with your retirement income goal. A common planning target is 80% of pre-retirement income, the reduced spending that typically accompanies retirement, as work-related expenses, mortgage payoffs, and reduced savings obligations lower the required monthly budget. On a $59,000 salary, 80% replacement produces a $47,200 annual retirement income target. Using the 4% rule,
though withdrawal rate research suggests a diversified portfolio can sustain indefinitely without depleting principal, multiply your annual income goal by 25 to get your target portfolio size. $47,200 multiplied by 25 equals $1.18 million. That is your number. The specific dollar amount your portfolio needs to reach before the 4% withdrawal rule produces your desired income without requiring additional labor. Now work backward. If you are 30 years old with $15,000 currently saved, targeting $1.18 million by age 65 at 8% annual returns, a conservative assumption below the historical average, you need to contribute approximately $680 monthly to reach your target. That is approximately 13.8% of a $59,000 gross salary, or $816 before taxes at the 22% bracket, given the deductibility of 401k contributions. This specific number, $680 monthly, automated on the first business day after each paycheck, split between a 401k and a Roth IRA in the correct priority order, is the complete implementation of a $1 million retirement strategy on an average salary, not conceptually, actually, in dollar terms that a calculator confirms and a 40-year market history supports. The automation is the critical structural element. A contribution that requires a monthly decision is a contribution that will be skipped in every month where a competing financial need feels more immediate, and there will always be a competing financial need. The car repair, the unexpected medical bill, the opportunity that seems better, the month where the market just dropped 15% and every financial news outlet is suggesting caution. Automatic contributions bypass all of these decisions. The money moves on its scheduled date regardless of market conditions, regardless of financial stress, regardless of what CNBC is saying about the outlook for equities. The automation is not a convenience. It is the structural mechanism that separates the people who build million-dollar retirement accounts on average salaries from the people who intended to. Step 5. Understand the specific behaviors that destroy the strategy and commit to avoiding them. The investment strategy described in this video will produce a 7-figure retirement account on an average salary under one condition. You have to leave it alone. Not most of the time, not except during serious market downturns, not except when a better opportunity appears. Leave it alone. The behaviors that most reliably destroy long-term compounding are well-documented, predictable, and committed by the majority of investors who understand the strategy perfectly well intellectually, but cannot maintain the behavioral commitment when the emotional pressure to act becomes sufficiently intense. Selling during market downturns is the most expensive single behavior in personal finance. The S&P 500 has declined by 20% or more on 12 separate occasions since 1950. Every single time it has recovered and reached new highs. The investor who holds through every one of those declines captures the full long-term return. The investor who sells during a 20% decline, converting a temporary paper loss into a permanent real loss, and waits for conditions to stabilize before reinvesting, misses the recovery that historically has followed every correction. Research from Dalbar's 2024 quantitative analysis of investor behavior found that the average equity fund investor earned 6.81% annually over the past 20 years, while the S&P 500 returned 9.74% annually over the same period. The investor had access to the index, they owned it, or something like it. The 2.93% annual gap is entirely attributable to investor behavior, selling during downturns and buying during recoveries, rather than any difference in the underlying investment. Over 20 years on a $300,000 portfolio, that behavioral gap costs approximately $340,000 in foregone wealth, not from picking the wrong investment, from responding emotionally to the right one. Borrowing against the 401k is the second most destructive common behavior. When the 401k balance has grown to $80,000 or $100,000 and a significant expense arises, a home renovation, a debt consolidation, a financial emergency, the 401k looks like an available pool of capital. The loan terms are relatively favorable, the interest goes back to yourself rather than to a bank. What this framing obscures is the compounding interruption. The $30,000 borrowed from a 401k at age 42 that would have compounded at 8% annual returns for 23 remaining years until age 65 would have become $195,000 at retirement. The loan doesn't cost $30,000. It costs $195,000 in foregone retirement wealth, plus the interest paid, plus the income taxes and early withdrawal penalties if the loan is not repaid within the required term. Stopping contributions during financial difficulty is the third critical behavioral failure. The monthly contribution that feels skippable during a tight period is not just the nominal dollar amount paused, it is the compounding future value of that contribution. A $700 monthly contribution paused for 12 months at age 35 costs not $8,400 in missed contributions, but approximately $80,000 in foregone retirement wealth at age 65, the amount that $8,400 would have compounded to at 8% annual returns over 30 years. The temporary relief of pausing contributions costs 9.5 times the nominal amount paused in long-term retirement wealth. Chasing performance by switching to last year's best-performing fund is the fourth behavioral pattern that reliably underperforms the boring alternative. Every year, some sector, some country, some asset class, or some thematic fund produces returns that dwarf the broad market average. The investor who sold their total market index fund to buy the previous year's top performer and repeated this behavior across 20 years of investment history consistently underperformed the investor who never sold the original fund. The strategy that felt proactive and informed produced worse results than the strategy that felt passive and naive. The commitment to avoiding these behaviors is not an investment decision. It is a behavioral commitment made in advance when market conditions are normal and emotional pressure is absent that will be tested repeatedly during the years the strategy requires to produce its results. Writing down specifically what you will do when the market drops 30%, I will continue my automatic contributions and not look at the balance, is more valuable preparation than any amount of additional investment research.
Step 6. Protect the strategy from the wealth traps that surround it. The investment strategy described in this video is the simple part. The hard part is protecting the monthly contribution from the financial decisions that consume the income before it reaches the investment account. The average American household that executes every step described above, but simultaneously carries $6,380 in credit card debt at 24% APR, finances a $48,000 vehicle at $738 monthly, and spends $219 monthly on subscriptions they've never fully audited, is not building a $1 million retirement account. They are building a retirement account with whatever remains after those wealth traps have taken their share, which is frequently very little. The credit card balance charging 24% interest is a guaranteed 24% return, higher than any passive investment strategy available. Every dollar directed toward high-interest debt elimination before investment is mathematically correct until the debt is gone.
The financed vehicle at $738 monthly represents $8,856 annually flowing away from potential investment. Someone who buys a reliable used vehicle for $15,000 cash instead of financing a $48,000 new vehicle at $738 monthly and invests the payment difference, approximately $600 monthly after accounting for the used vehicle purchase, accumulates approximately $530,000 in additional retirement wealth over 25 years at 8% returns. The transportation function is identical, the financial outcome is not. The subscription audit that recovers $80 monthly from services unused or underused, the insurance review that recovers $300 annually from premiums not compared against competitors in 3 years, the grocery habit adjustment that redirects $150 monthly from delivery app premiums to investment contributions, each of these individually is modest. Together, they represent $530 to $730 monthly in additional investable income recovered from spending that was happening without producing proportionate value. The $1 million retirement account on an average salary requires 2 parallel commitments: the specific investment strategy described in the previous steps and the specific spending discipline that ensures enough income reaches the investment account monthly to execute that strategy. Neither commitment is sufficient. The perfect investment strategy funded by irregular contributions interrupted by lifestyle spending produces a fraction of its potential. The perfect spending discipline that keeps money available but parks it in a savings account earning 4% rather than investing it in a market returning 10% wastes the behavioral discipline on the wrong vehicle. Both commitments, maintained simultaneously over the full investment horizon, produce the result the math predicts with remarkable reliability.
The $1 million retirement account on an average salary is not a motivational concept. It is an arithmetic outcome produced by 6 specific steps executed consistently over a long enough time horizon. Understand compound interest specifically enough that the early slow years don't break your commitment. Use the right accounts in the right order: 401k to the match, Roth IRA to the maximum, 401k beyond the match, to capture every available tax advantage. Buy low-cost total market index funds with expense ratios below 0.10% and own nothing actively managed that charges more than the index alternative. Calculate your specific monthly contribution target using your retirement income goal and the 4% rule, then automate that exact amount on a fixed date that never requires a monthly decision. Commit in advance to the specific behaviors you will not engage in during market downturns, borrowing opportunities, and periods of financial pressure. Protect the monthly contribution from the spending patterns that consume income before it reaches the account where compounding can work on it. These 6 steps are available to someone earning $45,000 annually. They are available to someone earning $75,000. They produce different absolute numbers at different income levels, but the same mathematical outcome relative to the income contributed: a retirement account that grows to a multiple of lifetime contributions that feels, from the vantage point of year 40, almost unfair. It is not unfair. It is arithmetic. The market has been running this calculation for 100 years. It has produced the same result for every patient, consistent, undramatic investor who contributed regularly, bought the index, paid minimal fees, and did not interrupt the process during the years it felt underwhelming. The $1 million is not waiting for a higher salary, a better market, a more convenient time, or a more sophisticated strategy. It is waiting for the automation to be set up. That takes about 10 minutes. Everything after that is just time doing what time does.